At 85, Paul Hogan is finally talking about Linda Kozlowski. Paul Hogan was born on October 8, 1939 in Thesmal mining town of Lightning Ridge, New South Wales, Australia. A place known for its opal fields and tug landscapes, growing up in rural Australia during the 1940s. A time after the war when things were hard, he lived a life very different from the fancy life he would have later. Not much is known about his parents or his early childhood, which has always made his life story mysterious. Hogan liked to keep his family background private, often talking instead about his career successes and his funny personality. This mysterious feeling about his early years made fans curious, letting them imagine him as the perfect image of the regular, hard-working Australian man who became famous against all odds. As a young man, Hogan got a job as a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, one of Australia's most famous landmarks. The work was really hard and needed a lot of courage because it meant climbing and balancing on steel beams way up above the bore. This experience not only made Hogan tougher, but also changed how he saw life. His time as a rigger kept him connected to everyday Australians who worked long hours at hard jobs. Later, this realness became one of the main things about his comedy. He never seemed stuck up, and his humor connected deeply with regular people because each had their own world back to them with warmth and laughter. Hogan's career in entertainment began kind of by surprise in 1971 when he appeared as a contestant on the Australian television show New Faces, a talent show that gave wannabe performers a chance to show off their abilities. Instead of doing the usual thing like singing or dancing, Hogan did something different. He entertained the judges and audience with his clever wit and special comedic style. His cheeky, down-to-earth humor delivered with an easygoing charm instantly connected with viewers. This first appearance started an amazing career, proving that Hogan had a talent for making people awe and a natural stage presence that would soon shoot him up to national fame. Excited by his new recognition, Hogan started his own program, The Paul Hogan Show, which he not only starred in, but also wrote and produced, running through most of the 1970s. The show was a funny sketch comedy series that made fun of Australian society, cultural quirks, and human behavior in general. Hogan's creativity and hands-on work in the show made him stand out. He wasn't just a performer, but a complete entertainer who shaped the content from beginning to end. The show was really popular, loved not only in Australia but also in other countries, especially in South Africa, where audiences found his humor easy to relate to. In 1973, Hogan's growing influence and popularity were officially recognized when he won the TV Week Logie Award for Best New Talent. Proving his place in the Australian entertainment industry, Hogan switched from television to film in the early 1980s. His film debut came in 1980 with a small part in the Australian movie, Fatty Finn, a family film set in the 1930s. Although it was a small part, it introduced him to movie audiences. He followed this with a bigger role in the TV miniseries Anzacs in 1985, where he played Lance Corporal Pat Cleary. The series, which showed the bravery and sacrifices of Australian soldiers during World War I, gave Hogan a chance to show his dramaticness, proving that he was more than just a comedian. However, it was in 1986 that Hogan truly made his mark on the international stage. He co-wrote the screenplay for and starred in Crocodile Dundee, a film directed by Peter F. Iman. In it, Hogan played the role of McKelgie, Crocodile Dundee, a tough and cool bushman from the Australian outback who travels to New York City and finds himself dealing with a world completely different from his own. The film was made on a pretty small budget of less than $10 million, but it touched people's hearts worldwide, with its mix of comedy, adventure, and romance. Along with Hogan's magnetic performance, the movie became a huge box office success, earning hundreds of millions around the world. It wasn't just successful with money. It also won over critics who praised Hogan's natural charm and the film's fun yet smart way of showing cultural differences. For his work in Crocodile Dundee, Hogan got international recognition. He won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical Motion Picture, and he was nominated for both BAFTA Award and an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. An amazing achievement for Somia Nuho had started his career as a bridge worker. Hogan had officially become a household name not just in Australia but across the globe. The success of the first film led to a sequel, Crocodile Dundee 2, in 1988, While it did well, earning impressive box office money, critics were less excited, often comparing it badly to the original. Hogan, however, continued to expand his career, starring in other films such as the 1990 comedy Drum Almost and Angel, which unfortunately failed to impress both critics and audiences. Similarly, his 1994 Western comedy Lightning Jack got harsh reviews and disappointing ticket sales. Showing a difficult time in his film career, Hogan's career faced more setbacks in 1996 with the release of Flipper, a family film directed by Alan Shapiro. Although Hogan's performance as the lead character was praised for its warmth and likability, the film itself was a commercial disappointment, making $20 million against its $25 million budget. Critics said the story wasn't convincing, though the movie did get some award nominations, showing that Hogan's talent still showed up even when the projects themselves didn't work out. In 1998, he appeared in the film Floating Away, though it too failed to bring back his earlier box office success. In 2001, Hogan returned to his most famous role with Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. While fans were curious to see him play Michael Dundee again, the film was not as successful as the ones before and ultimately marked the end of the franchise. The charm of the original simply could not be brought back, and it became clear that Dundee's cultural moment had passed. Despite these struggles, Hogan continued working in film, appearing in Strange Bedfellows in 2004, a comedy about two men pretending to be a gay couple to exploit tax loopholes, and Charlie and Boots in 2009, a road trip comedy about a father and son reconnecting after tragedy. Both films had modest receptions, but showed Hogan's lasting ability to play relatable, likable characters. In recent years, Hogan has mostly stepped back from acting, preferring a quieter life after decades in the spotlight. Nevertheless, he made occasional appearances, such as his guest spot on Adam Hill's Tonight in 2013, reminding audiences of the wit and charm that made him a star in the first place. Paul Hogan's journey is one of strength, humor, and change. From a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge to an international film star and award-winning writer, history shows the Australian spirit of determination and easygoing charm. Though his later career was marked by ups and downs, Hogan remains forever celebrated as the man who brought Crocodile Dundee to life, a character who became a cultural icon and helped introduce illustration, humor, and storytelling to the world. Paul Hogan's personal life has been marked by relationships that got as much public attention as his acting career. His first marriage was to Nolene Edwards in 1958, long before he became a household name in Australia or an international star. At that time, Hogan was just beginning his adult life, working as a rigger on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and his marriage to Nolene represented a more traditional and private side of his early years. Together, the couple built a family and shared in Hogan's rise from being unknown to being famous, dealing with the pressures of public life once he became a comedian and later a film star. Their marriage lasted for over 2 decades, a long period in which Hogan's career began to grow. But in 1981, after more than 20 years together, they separated and went through a divorce. The split surprised many, as Hogan's public image was often tied to the image of a devoted family man. What followed was even more unexpected. Within less than a year, Hogan and Edwards remarried. They're getting back to their spurt. A lot of media interest and speculation. Many thought that Hogan's attempt to fix his first marriage showed the depth of his bond with Edwards and his commitment to keeping his family together. However, the remarriage was not to last. By 1986, the couple divorced again, and this time, the separation was far more messy and public. It became widely known as one of Australia's ugliest celebrity divorces, involving heated arguments and widespread media coverage. Their breakup exposed Hogan to intense attention as the actor's private life became a subject of gossip and fascination across Australia and abroad after his split from Nolene. Hogan's romantic life again made headlines when fell in love with his Crocodile Dundee co-star Linda Kozlowski. The pair had undeniable on-screen chemistry which turned into a real-life romance. In 1990, Hogan married Kozlowski, making solid what many saw as a classic Hollywood love story, an actor falling for his co-star while working on a film that became a worldwide sensation. Their marriage got internationalization as the couple represented the glamour of show business, often appearing together at premieres and industry events. In terms of family, Hogan's children have always been an important part of his life. With newlyweds, he fathered 5 children, and the size of their family showed the couple's long years together. Later, with Kozlowski, Hogan had one more child, making him the father of 6 in total. His role as a father was a main element of his personal identity, even as his marriages went through upheaval. However, Hogan's second marriage also eventually came to an end. After more than 2 decades together, Linda Kozlowski filed for divorce in October 2013, citing considerable differences. The decision shocked some fans who had long admired their relationship, while others noted that the pressures of fame and Hogan's preference for living in both Australia and the United States may have strained their union. The divorce was finalized in 2014, bringing an official close to a chapter of Hogan's life that had once seemed like a fairy tale romance. At 85 years old, Australian actor and comedian Paul Hogan, the man who became an international household name with his portrayal of the tough yet charming Crocodile Dundee, has finally decided to break his silence about one of the most talked about parts of his personal life: his relationship with his former wife and longtime co-star, Linda Kozlowski. For decades, fans and the media alike wondered about the true nature of their romance, how it blossomed on the set of the Crocodile Dundee films, and ultimately why it came to an end. Now in his final years, Hogan seems more willing than ever to think openly and honestly about the woman who was such an important part of his journey both on screen and off screen. Linda was more than just my co-star, Hogan admitted in a candid conversation when we were working together. There was his natural connection, this spark that just came across on the screen. Wouldn't have to force it. And I think that's why audiences around the world believed in Mick and Sue's story. Boot of screen. It wasn't just acting. It was real. His words make it clear that the chemistry in Crocodile Dundee wasn't made up by clever writing or direction, but rather born out of a genuine affection that developed between them during the whirlwind of fame that surrounded the film's release in 1986. Hogan went on to explain that when he and Linda first met, he was already known as a popular comedian and television personality in Australia, while she was an American actress relatively new to the business. Linda came in with this freshness, Hogan recalled. She wasn't jaded by Hollywood yet. She had this energy that really drew me in. I found myself wanting to be around her more and more, even when the camera stopped rolling. The relationship, however, was complicated from the start. Hogan was married to his first wife, Nolene Edwards, with whom shared 5 children. The eventual breakdown of that marriage in the wake of his romance with Kozlowski was headline news, and Hogan has never shied away from acknowledging that it was a painful chapter in his life. It wasn't easy for anyone, Hogan confessed. People think because you're famous or successful, things just fall into place, but the truth is, you've still got a family, responsibilities, and people who get hurt. Noel and I had been through so much together, and then suddenly, my life was heading in a completely different direction. I don't regret the time Linda and I had together, but I do regret the pain it caused others along the way. His comments show a man who, even after all these years, still struggles with the complicated emotions tied to his choices. Hogan and Kozlowski married in 1990 and were together for more than 2 decades. During that time, they welcomed their son, Chance, who became the light of both their lives. Chance changed everything, Hogan said warmly. Being a dad again later in life, especially with Linda by my side, gave me a different perspective. We both wanted to give him best childhood possible, and in many ways that kept us united even when things were difficult between us, despite the pressures of Hollywood, their age difference, and the relentless scrutiny. Hogan and Kozlowski tried to make their marriage work. Yet by 2014, they decided to part ways. We just grew apart, Hogan explained. Linda, a wonderful woman, and we shared some incredible years together, but at some point we realized we weren't making each other as happy as we used to. It wasn't some big dramatic fight or betrayal. It was just life, and sometimes people move in different directions. He emphasized that their divorce was friendly, noting, "We've always tried to stay on good terms for Chance's sake. No matter what, she'll always be part of my story, and he'll always care about her." Now, reflecting from the viewpoint of 85 years, Hogan seems both nostalgic and philosophical about his time with Kozlowski. You look back on your life and you realize it's not about the fame or the money or even the movies. It's about the people you shared it all with. Linda wasn't of those people for me. We laughed a lot. We traveled the world together and we built a family. I'll never forget that his reflections reveal a softer, more vulnerable side to the man once celebrated as the quintessential Austin tough guy. For Hogan, speaking about Linda Kozlowski at this stage in his life is less about going over the past and more about acknowledging the profound impact she had on his journey. If people remember me for Crocodile Dundee, then they'll always remember Linda too, because that story was ours.